Remarks from each one of you for being here today. We thank you so much. Senator Humison.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Congregation Sons of Zion, for having us here. Excuse me. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. It would have been really easy for me to say, no, I didn't want to come. But my feeling is, as an elected official in the Commonwealth, it's more than just what I want to do. It's my job to listen to people from opposing views. And I will tell you, and I think my friends will agree, that we probably agree on more things than we disagree on. But it's the nature of our business to focus on those controversial issues that are, in some ways, the ones where we're on opposite sides sometimes. I just appreciate the fact that you invited me to be here. I'm glad to have the chance to meet and listen to many of you. I'll leave you with this. Politicians are driven by what their voters tell them. Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, doesn't make no difference. We have our own core set of beliefs and values, the way we were raised, our faith, our family, whatever that has a lot to do with who we are and what we do, but we also have a job to do. And so as we go forward over the next few years and the next 4 years under the Trump administration and see what the impacts coming out of Washington, D.C. are on Massachusetts, we will definitely listen to the constituents that we represent because that's our job. So anyway, thank you for the start of this. I really do think it was a good and really healthy way to begin the debate, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you, Senator Humison, Representative Redmond.
Thank you to everybody putting this together, and thank you for sticking with us. I think this is key. I mean, what's interesting is in this hour and a half, we talked about probably the 4 or 5 big issues that we're going to be taking up in the state legislature: economic development, energy, education, and criminal justice. Those are probably the big 4 that and marijuana falls in there somewhere as well. We're going to be, and this is what's on people's mind, this is what's on our mind. So we are meeting, at a starting point together. And I just hope that these conversations continue. It's our job to be available, so we are accessible to you. Sometimes it may be helpful to have these kind of forums maybe with more of a focus instead of just a broad any question goes. Maybe we want to set these up as individual things. We are here to work with you. Keep in contact with us. The 2 things I want to just point out to you as you get active and try not to get too stressed out with all the things going on in the world today. When you contact your legislators, first thing I wanted to say, don't be distraught if you talk to our legislative aides. These 2 have like 4 or 5, 6 staffers. I have 1, and Mayor I think has 1. Never take it. Never be shunned. Okay, it's not an insult. Me with our staffers is like me with us. Okay, so talk to our staffers, email us, contact us. I just want to put I'm just plugging for our staffers because they will often be the front line. The other thing I think is that we're talking about these big issues, which is important to do. But I think when it comes back down to it, it's one of the original questions, like how do I get involved in diversity, this, that. Take what you're passionate about and get involved. Volunteer. Is it through your synagogue or church? Is it with Neighbor to Neighbor? Is it with a Rise for Social Justice? Is it with a food pantry? What can you do locally to make that impact, right? We've all been talking about local, right? There's the federal stuff, there's state, there's the municipalities. Get involved with something. One thing, make a difference in your local community can have such a big impact. And so I encourage you to keep involved. I know that actually the first week of April, I'm going to be having a forum here in the city to talk about the marijuana law. I'm on the policy committee, so we'll be talking about that. So if that's something you're interested in, please contact me. We're all very accessible on social media and whatnot, so please keep the conversation going, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative.
So thank you so much for having me. I appreciated the invitation. It was a great dialogue, and you are very well and ably represented in Holyoke by Aaron and Don and Mayor Morris. So I want to thank you guys for letting me crash. I'll just say a few things. One just broader item, which unfortunately, because there were so many questions, we didn't get to develop quite enough, but just something I want people to go kind of home thinking about, which is I think that the fundamental issue we face, I think it was Stan who alluded to it with his question about economics, is look, we have an economy right now where a 19-year-old can become a billionaire by inventing an iPhone app, and nobody else can find a good job. That is the underlying issue, I think, animating and poisoning so much of our politics. And I think as Democrats, I won't include Don in that, but as Democrats, and I feel like I have an obligation, all of us have an obligation as elected officials to think hard about that. To think about how in a changing economy, where people are increasingly squeezed, where we're facing trade is one issue, but so is automation, so is technology, so is labor law, so are environmental issues. How we offer an alternative to Trump's demagoguery. And history can give us some lessons. There's a guy, William Jennings Bryan, who people, I know some people know about him, but read a little bit. When we were changing from an agrarian to an industrial, country, he was out there. Andrew Jackson, previously, again, when we were making transitions. At other kind of turning points in our history, we've had dislocations in our politics that were also pretty scary and pretty damaging. And it was up to responsible community members and responsible public leaders to offer an alternative to that. And the alternative has to be relevant, and it has to be on point, and it's to actually offer a solution and be in touch with what people are worried about and what people are concerned about. So I would say the challenge for all of us is to make Massachusetts that alternative example. Let's build an east-west rail line and actually connect the disparate parts of our community, because frankly, Western Mass has been left out of the economic growth we've seen in Boston. Let's get the marijuana laws sorted out so that we can move towards a more humane criminal justice policy and a more humane substance abuse policy. Let's work on fixing clean energy and healthcare, and let's do it in a thoughtful but in an impactful way, and be that alternative. So that eventually, when the pendulum does swing, and in 2 years or 4 years, when there is another election, we can stand up as progressives and say, here's all the things we've accomplished in Massachusetts. And look at how much better life is for people in Massachusetts because of all these policies we've worked on. And that will open the door to getting rid of someone like Trump and voting in somebody else, or changing the House, or changing the Senate, and actually making progress on all of these things. And then I'm just going to close by, I know that the point of this forum wasn't partisan, but yesterday there was an election for a new chair of the Democratic National Committee. Alex and I both know one of the people who was running, who's a very good friend of mine. His name is Peter Buttigieg. He ended up not winning, but he's a young guy from, he's an openly gay Afghanistan vet from Indiana. He's an elected official in Mike Pence's Indiana. And my feeling is if somebody can succeed as a progressive Democrat in Indiana, we should listen to what they have to say and to what they're doing. So I think while we fight for specific policy, sorry to dwell, we've got to work on reform of our own house. And we've got to embolden younger leaders. We've got to embolden and talk to people that we don't always talk to, and bring in new communities. And we need to kind of turn a page here and bring in some fresh perspective and some fresh ideas, or we're going to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Thank you, Senator Leslie. As we begin with Mayor Morris, welcoming you to this forum. And so thank you for all your closing comments, Mayor Morris.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you to my fellow panelists for their service on behalf of our community. And particularly want to thank Senator Humison. He was right in saying that he didn't have to come here this morning and a panel entitled this. And I do appreciate you coming here, especially when we have Republicans around the country not showing up for their own town halls. I do want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here, and as Aaron alluded earlier, activism and engagement is more than just coming to this panel. It's more than just posting an article on Facebook, and as I said earlier, please get involved locally, attend your local city council meetings or board meetings. If you have ever thought about running for office, run for office. It's so important to have good people in government making decisions. If you're not at the table, or someone that doesn't represent you isn't at the table, you're not going to be well represented in your government. And there's so many reasons that people will say not to run for office, but please do. And local government does matter. I've seen it firsthand over the last 6 years. And as others have said, we really can make a difference on the local level amidst what is happening on the federal level, even though we shouldn't lose sight of that. One of the things I've been most encouraged about since Trump's election is, even the immediate day after, getting phone calls and emails from residents I had never met saying, and asking how they could get involved in their local government, that this had inspired them to be involved and make a difference, whether it be serving on a local board or commission or volunteering in their community. And if there's one silver lining, I think we'll see a new generation of both young and not so young activists and elected officials come to bear here. And I think about my own personal experience of growing up under President George W. Bush, a president that tried to enshrine the U.S. Constitution with discrimination. And if not for his leadership or lack thereof, I'm not sure I would be here today involved in politics and engagement. And so let's use this opportunity to find who we are as a people, as a community, and as a Democratic Party. I think it's so important that Democrats continue and finally have a backbone by standing up for the values that they believe in. And yes, we have to compromise from time to time, but let's not be ashamed of the values that we were born out of, and making sure that we include all people in our party and in our mission and in our evolution here. So thank you so much for being part of that, and I look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you, Mayor. And once again, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. Give them a standing ovation. How about that? We appreciate your comments, and thank you all for attending. I'll turn it over real quickly to Andrea Fox, but I will